everyone. Good morning. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jata Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavanishwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Paramami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Namaste, Saraswati. Okay, welcome everybody. We had a day off yesterday, we're back. And we left off talking about this red pill, blue pill thing. Some of those that you're hearing remember that. But maybe we can kind of start there. I'll just give a super quick, brief summary of some of the things that we covered. We began by defining yoga as yoga is a practice which empowers one to overcome the obstacle of the mind for the purpose of the self experiencing their own true nature. Okay. And then we said throughout this course, at least throughout, I would call maybe the first half of this course, we're covering those three topics: the practices, the mind, and the nature of the self. And we started by discussing the nature of the self, that by nature, the yogis say, that by nature we're happy, by nature we're eternal, by nature we're full of knowledge, by nature we're blissful. And so we run around searching for happiness through external things, through external objects that connect with the senses of the body, and with the hope that they will bring us happiness and satisfaction and contentment and peace and so on. But the yogis are saying it doesn't work that way. And no matter how hard you try, no matter what you get, even the people that get all of the stuff that they're desiring still don't find that happiness. And they say that's because it's actually that happiness is within. It's not something to be attained from an external source. It's something to be uncovered from within. And the way that it's uncovered is called yoga. Right? All the different practices of yoga, not just the asanas. Asanas is a beautiful practice, but it's only one very small part of yoga. There's much more to it. And all those practices are designed to discover or uncover that true nature underneath, the true blissful nature underneath. But it's challenging because there's something very formidable in between us and that experience. Something really powerful, something subtle but very strong, and it's got us in its grip, and that is the mind. So now that we've discussed a bit about the nature of the self, and we can discuss more about it as we go, and we can take questions on it too. Please feel free to ask questions as we go forward. But now we're going to discuss the mind. And we're discussing the mind using an analogy, which is a computer. We're going to find computer analogies to be very, very strong analogies in trying to understand, in explaining what the yogis taught, right? And the analogies are so strong, it makes you feel like, oh, they were onto something. Like the way that the yogis described how the mind works is exactly like, it's exactly like a computer works. All the different functions of the computer, they're there in the mind. And just as a computer programming, there are algorithms. There are algorithms in our mind. The yogis understood that. The yogis, they described how the mind works in all of its different functions, and we can just line it up parallel to computer functions. It's interesting. Yes? Find that interesting? Mm-hmm. I find that very interesting. And it gives us the opportunity to, if we really want to understand something, or we really want to overcome something, it's helpful to be able to kind of dissect it and kind of lay it all out in front of you, or put it all on a white. Just like, say, in a strategy, whether it's a strategy in battle or a strategy in sports, generally, at a certain point, the coach breaks out, like a chalkboard and starts breaking out. Okay, they have this player here, and they have that player here, and this is their function, and they have another player here, or this army, they have this battalion that functions in this way. You need to break it all down and see how it all works. And so the yogis had a way of breaking down the mind, laying it all out in front of us, seeing all of its different functions, understanding how it works. Bhagavad Gita says that the mind can be our best friend, but also it can be our worst enemy. And for most of us, it's the enemy. And when I say that, what I mean by that is that it's preventing us from experiencing our own true nature. It's like a computer that has been hacked, randomly hacked, or sometimes not even so randomly, sometimes very intentionally. Morton, you were saying that you've worked in advertising. You've probably been in boardrooms where they're discussing strategies. Very, very well-considered strategies of how to get people's minds to think, right? So I say randomly hacked, but in many cases by randomly I mean we're all moving through life and experiences coming at us. A lot of it is random, but a lot of it is very targeted, how we think. Welcome, everyone. And so if our mind is to become our friend, we have to get control. Right? We have to, otherwise we're not free. And I described this, a lot of you are here for the first time, so maybe I'll share it again. I grew up in a little town, but it was right on the edge of New York City. And so, when you're growing up, generally decisions are being made for you. Now you're going to go to school, now you go here, now you do this, now you do that, and you follow it along. And then you reach a certain age where you're like, I'm going to start to make my own decisions now. Now I'm going to choose where I go, and I'm going to choose who I associate with, and I'm going to choose what I do. And when I got about 15 years old, I kind of got there. And I just, going to downtown Manhattan was just a short train ride for me. And when I would step out on the streets in New York City, I just felt this overwhelming sense of freedom. I don't know if you all felt that kind of thing before in your life. Have you ever felt that at a certain point in your life? I'm free now. Maybe some of you came to Rishikesh to feel that, right? You left behind something. You feeling that a little bit, Morton? A little bit?
I felt exactly the same thing when I was living in New York.
Oh, okay, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel it right away here.
Okay.
I felt it in Arambol last year as well when I arrived there.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I've heard other people say they've had that experience in New York City too. It's just anything goes. Especially back then, it was like I'm talking about the early 80s. It was kind of a lawless place at the time, so I felt really free. But I was interested in I was interested in the music, I was interested in the people, I was interested in the girls, I was interested in the drugs, and all these things were like opening up to me. And I felt like now I'm doing exactly what I want to do. It was exciting. It was exciting for me. But as I grew older, and particularly as I got an understanding of yoga philosophy, I look back at it now and I say, I wasn't free at all. I was being dragged in a certain direction by the programming within my own mind. I thought that programming was me, or that it was mine, but I've had the ability now, I've been given the ability to step back and look at my mind as as a distant observer, rather than live inside my mind and identify with my mind and identify with the thoughts in my mind. I want to do this, I want to do that. I could see my mind is programmed to want this. My mind is programmed to want that. And I've been following that programming. So really, I was not free at all. I was really trapped. The more that I thought I was free, the more trapped that I was. Right? So when we talk about red pill, blue pill, right? Red pill represents, I want the illusion. I don't want to know the truth. I want the comfortable illusion. And blue pill means no matter how challenging the circumstances may be, I want the truth and I want freedom. Even if that freedom is going to be a struggle, even if that freedom is going to mean challenges, even if that freedom means austerity, or giving things up or so, I want that freedom. That freedom is more important to me than just surrendering to the illusion. It makes sense? So the yogis are saying, we're all in that position. The vast majority of us are trapped, in a sense, by the programming of our own mind. For the vast majority, our mind is standing in between ourself and the experience of our own true nature. But the yogis are saying it's okay because we have practices, different paths of yoga that can gain, by which you will gain control of the mind. Different strategies. And when you gain control of your mind, your own nature is going to begin to rise within you. And when you feel that, you'll know it. And when you know it, you'll be free. That sound okay? Okay. Questions before we move forward? Vikram.
Thank you so much. Just want to formulate the question more properly in my mind.
Okay.
You just briefly said how when you were in New York City, when you were feeling you were free, you realize it's this programming of the mind. But sometimes, maybe I've seen this in my own life, and I would say that I'm following my heart's desire.
Yeah.
And there was this movie by Julia Roberts, and she ends up, leaving her job, going to Italy, going to Bali. Like it's a new age movie. But the thing is, a lot of even in my own sphere of work, so to say, I've seen a lot of yogis when I meet them. They're like, I followed my heart and I keep doing it.
Yeah.
Like, so I'm just trying to understand the difference between following the mental programming and, so to say, quote unquote, following the heart.
Yeah. Or sometimes we say following the gut.
Following the gut.
Yeah, the gut feeling.
Yeah. So I don't know if
No, it's a very important question, and it's a question answering it is challenging, or what I mean by answering it is the ability for one to be able to answer that question themselves is very challenging, because we have different sources of information within us, right? And that's what we'll break down now. There's the mind, and there's different features within the mind, and there's memory. And memory is stored, and when that memory is stored, it's encoded with emotion. And so any feeling that I have, any desire that I have, it is a subtle, it takes quite a subtle analysis. It may be an analysis that's beyond our ability to identify exactly what is the origin of that desire. Is it an irrational desire based on just programming that's been hacked into my mind? Is it a very rational desire that perhaps has been processed through my mind and is healthy and positive? Is it something coming from still deeper in, from the true self, passing through the filter of the mind? Any of those is a possibility. Sometimes we speak about a gut feeling or an intuition, like let's say maybe about another person. Maybe there's certain body language that we may not even know exactly what it is, but it's triggering something that's deep inside our memory bank, our subconscious mind, that makes us feel, I don't know if I want to be with that person. Maybe I need to get out of here. And that may be a healthy emotional programming within the mind. It may have come through movies. It may have come through something our mother kept telling us. Or it may be, there's another factor here that we haven't even put on the board yet, here or here, which is the Paramatma. That the yogis say that there's not only one body, one soul within each body, but there's actually two. There's ourself, and then there's the Paramatma, the supreme self, or God within the heart. And that Paramatma is ready to speak to us, is speaking to us. Generally, we're not hearing, but sometimes perhaps in a moment where we most need it, it can speak louder and we'll hear it. So it could be any of those things. Yeah. I have one friend who's a yogi. And when I say yogi in this context, I mean like most of my friends are yogis. Most of my friends are bhakti yogis. But I have like one friend that's more like, he's a bhakti yogi, but he also has a natural inclination to the kind of yogic practices that a lot of the yogis up in these mountains practice, or a lot of the Ashtanga yogis or Kriya yogis. So he likes to do practices like sit perfectly still without budging for 24 hours and count every single breath. 1. Like after a few hours of that, most people have really had enough. I mean, after a few minutes of that, most people had enough. But a person like this has he has a mind that's been shaped in a way that he's discovering something through it. Do you know how many breaths we take in a 24-hour period, roughly? Anyone know?
20.
Yeah, around 20 or 23,000, something in there. This is a man from the hills here. He knows. And so, but a person like that can go deep into the mind, and it's a little scary for most of us to do it. We don't have the tolerance to do it, but when you start to discover things there, then sometimes you want to go back and go deeper. But he also told me that like within his own abdomen, within this area of the body, he can feel separately each of the separate organs in there. Like for me, this is just the guts. I don't know. I don't feel my liver separately from I feel my gallbladder from where, I might feel like a feeling in my stomach, I suppose. But Maharaj, welcome. Thank you so much for attending. But yeah, for me, it's just like a big stomach area, big gut area. He said he can feel the different organs separately, and he can feel them breathe. Right? That's something I have no awareness of. He's gained that awareness through these yogic practices. In a similar way, as we advance in yoga, we may become more aware of this is a triggered response in one part of my mind, in the manas. This thought is the product of it's processed thought that's gone through the buddhi, gone through the intellect and been refined and is healthy and helpful. And this came from Paramatma. This was God speaking to me. And this was my own soul, my own soul's desire. As the yogi advances, it'll become more pure and more pure. And what the yogi will do is that they'll program their own mind so that it's entirely harmonious with the nature of the self and with the Paramatma. And then there's no tension or challenges between it. It's all one pure thought, But I suppose that's our work to get to that stage. And until then, the yogis recommend, we have our internal voice. We want to hear the voice of God. We call it the Chaitya Guru, right? The inner guru. But we're very prone to say whatever desire that we have, we think, that was my inner guru speaking to me. It's not necessarily. But Hariji, welcome. So good to have you here. Hare Krishna Guruji. So I once had a friend. He had a particular desire. I'm not going to say exactly what it was. I'll say what it was. He's a dear friend, and these things get recorded, so I don't know. But I had a friend. We were monks together. Long time ago. We were young. And I had another friend who was here just a couple of days ago, Raghunath. Now, Raghunath has a unique spiritual path because he was a punk rock musician before he became a monk. And he left that all behind. He had some success and some fame and some following. He decided there's no real happiness in that. For the fame and whatever I was getting, I thought it would satisfy me. It didn't satisfy me. So he took an interest in Eastern thought. He took an interest in bhakti, and he came to Vrindavan and other places in India and learned a lot, and his conviction in that grew. And then he returned to the West and continued to live as a monk. And after some time, and with the encouragement of some other monks, they said, you have this background in music. And just like Arjuna had a background in his military arts, and he used them in service, so you could use that in service if you want to, and maybe you could help a lot of people. And so he decided to do that, and then he started a new band, and that band became very successful, and it really helped a lot of people spiritually. That band was called Shelter. And so this other friend of mine saw that and said, I could do that too. I could be a musician. I could start a band and so on. And he wrote a letter to his guru, with that idea. And his guru wrote back a letter, which he didn't explicitly forbid his disciple from pursuing that. But if you read it, it was everything, and it was saying, I don't know if that's a good idea. I think, Raghunath already had a whole following already there, and maybe you'll find yourself in places and with people that won't be helpful for your spiritual life in doing this. Anybody else that read that letter saw that clearly, that he was encouraging him not to follow that path. But when he read that letter, he was like, he's telling me to do it. So we have a mind that filters things out, and we have desires, and those desires programmed in the mind, and we'll talk about that right now. Those desires programmed in the mind often become the filters of truth. They filter out truth. We need filters that filter out illusion and leave us with pure truth, and that's what the yogi is working to do through their yoga practice. So let's get into this analogy of the mind being like a computer. And I have this, I don't know how well you all can see it here, but I have this drawing or diagram, and it's laying it out. The mind itself, let's call that the computer, right? And that's going to be our faculty for receiving, processing, storing the data that comes through what? Our senses, right? So the senses are like the plug-in devices, the devices that we plug into a computer, like a camera. A camera is nothing but the eyes for a computer. And a microphone is nothing but the ears of a computer. The eyes take in visual data, send it to the mind. The ears take in audio data, send it to the mind. In the same way that a camera and a microphone take in audio and visual data and send it to the computer. Make sense? Simple, right? Okay. The yogi, and I mentioned this, I believe, the last time that we got together. The yogis, they speak of not just five senses. The senses that we call the senses, they call them the knowledge-acquiring senses. And then there's another set of five senses that they call the senses of action. And amongst those senses is the voice. It's one of them. So we could attach speakers to a computer, and now we have a voice, right? A vocal capacity, right? And then the other thing here I have is the hard drive. And the hard drive is analogous to what the yogis, well, in English we'd call it the subconscious mind. Even in computer technology, what do we call that? Memory, right? That there's a memory bank where it stores information. Now this, everyone happy with that analogy so far? The metaphor, it's clear enough, yeah? Simple. When an analogy is strong, you can take it to deeper and deeper and deeper levels, and it holds up. You understand? And we're going to find that the computer analogy goes like that. The deeper you take it, every time I read something new about computer technology, I'm like, oh, just see, it goes further and further and further. how applications interface with another. You know, like there's a term for that. And, well, that's exactly what the yogis say happens in the mind. You know, no matter how deep you go into it, it seems to hold up strong. But let's just work with it at this level right now. And I'm going to talk about the applications in the mind in a moment. But first, let's talk about a really important word, which is a word that describes experiences that we have that come through our senses, pass through our mind, and are stored in the subconscious mind. Does anyone know the Sanskrit word for those impressions that are stored in the mind? Samskaras, right? Everyone's heard this word? Samskaras. Real important word in yoga. Samskaras. It means that just like on a computer hard drive, and I've never really, some computer people really know about this kind of stuff, but from what I understand, there's a disk and there's some form of a needle, I suppose, that's carving the information into the hard drive disk. Is it like that? Something like that, yes? And so it leaves an impression. It leaves an impression on the hard drive. The yogis say that that's what's happening. Impressions are being left. They're passing through our senses. They're being processed through our mind, which is a real important part that we're about to talk about. And then it leaves an impression in the memory, right, in the hard drive that we have, the subconscious mind. By subconscious mind, it's a simple thing. It simply means the memory that we all right now have a ton of memory that we're not accessing in the moment, right? So many thoughts, so many experiences, they're in our memory bank, but in the moment, they're subconscious. They haven't been brought up to the level of our awareness or in this moment, but they could be pulled up. Some of them are so deep in there, it's hard to pull them up. You know, we have memories that we can't pull them. We tried. I'm trying to find, just like on a computer, I know I have this file in here somewhere, but I can't remember where I put it. So we may try to access memory that we have and have trouble finding it. Sometimes someone comes and reminds us, oh yes, and then we pull it up, right? So the yogis are saying that this is real important. Every bit of data, every sight that we have, every sound that we hear, right? Every taste, every smell, every tactile sensation that we experience leaves a mark in our memory. Nothing just passes through without leaving its mark. Everything leaves a mark. Some of those marks, some of those impressions are life-changing, right? Some of those impressions, they change everything. Some of the impressions are very insignificant and don't have any real lasting effect on our life. From what I understand about Western psychology, which is basically just from watching television shows, to be honest with you. I've never studied it in the university or anything like that. But from what I've seen, if someone has some kind of mental disorder, let's say, usually it means like there's an algorithm in the mind, another computer analogy, right? There's something that keeps coming back to the surface, keeps coming up, keeps coming. Sometimes you're on Instagram or YouTube and it keeps sending up stuff and you're like, why do you keep sending this junk up at me, right? Because we clicked on it one time, it comes again and again and again. The yogis are saying the same thing happens in the mind. Because you bring your mind to something one time, it's going to come back. It's what to speak if you start to bring it there regularly, then that stuff is just going to start to live in your conscious mind. It's going to keep rising from the unconscious to the conscious, even you don't want it to come. And how do you get rid of it? You get rid of it the same way that you kind of clear out your algorithms on a computer. You know, you have to start to unfollow certain things, and you have to, you know, there's a conscious way to do it. We won't get into it right now. For Spanish speakers, Gabby here has done a whole course on the algorithms of the mind. And you could just see, again, it's a strong analogy because it just lines up. You just Google, how do I reprogram the algorithms on my Instagram? And it tells you check, 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 check. And essentially the yogis say do the exact same kind of stuff. You know? Okay, but setting all that aside for now, what I understand about Western psychology is if you have an unhealthy algorithm, a loop that continually plays in the mind, maybe one of fear, maybe one of depression, or one of anxiety, then you go and you see an expert, right? And that expert has a subtle way of working, that they begin to ask you questions about your life. And you start to, and the questions don't necessarily seem to have a direct relationship to your malady, but they're giving the psychiatrists information, and they're very aware of the patterns of the mind and how the mind works. And eventually through their subtle questioning, they get you to reveal something in your past. Often it has to do with our childhood. Often it has to do with our parents. And something that left a mark, something that left an impression, something that left a samskara deep within our mind, that's almost like a virus, a file that's a virus in the memory on the hard drive of the computer of our mind. Does that make sense? A viral file is something that's causing a malfunction within the smooth operation of the computer. And we may have impressions deep within our memory bank that are causing our mind to malfunction in a particular way. Let's say a phobia, right? Some of them, it's passing right over the rational filter of our mind, the intellect. You know, a spider, right? What they call it, arachnophobia, I believe. A little tiny spider, right? No danger whatsoever, right? I mean, we can just, with our toe, we can just like crush it instantly, right? But one person will see that and have absolutely no problem with it. And another person will see it and be terrified, absolutely terrified of the spider, even though it presents no danger whatsoever. So somehow an impression got left in the mind. It created a pattern, it created a loop that plays, and creates this malfunction. It's a virus on the computer. We need to identify that file, and then we need to erase that file and replace it with a healthy file. And then we will have a computer of a mind that's functioning smooth again. Make sense? Okay, everybody with me? It's good. All right, so the yogis are saying that we have a mind full of impressions. And when let's say we take in a sight, it's going to pass through the applications of our mind, which we're about to get into, 3 different applications in the mind. That experience, that vision, will be processed through this and then stored. But as it passes through, when I say it's processed through these applications in the mind, it means that it becomes further encoded. The information becomes further encoded and then stored. So that when that file is drawn back up again, it's not merely the pure vision, but it's the pure vision encoded through your mind. And so therefore, 2 people may see the exact same vision, passes through their minds, gets stored, and when it comes up, for one person it's pleasurable and for one person it's painful. For one person it's illuminating, and for another person it covers the clarity of their thought, it clouds the clarity of their thought. Right? That makes sense? So let's talk about these applications briefly. 3 applications that function on the mind. In Sanskrit, they're called the manas, the ahankara, and the buddhi. But I'll use English terms for them. And so we have them here: the impulsive mind, the ego, and the intellect, or we could also call the intellect the reflective mind. All right. And I know these terms, they may not mean so much right now, but let me briefly explain them. And I think in the coming days, we'll go deeper into each one because they're very fascinating. But the impulsive mind means this, the manas, that there's an application in our mind. And it's the first application that new information is processed through, called the manas, or the impulsive mind. And when I say impulsive, there's 2 really important things that we need to understand about this application. One is that it is impulsive. And by impulsive, what I mean is it doesn't weigh pros and cons. It doesn't it doesn't draw from any memory bank with information to process this experience. It just responds like just the way a computer may be programmed to respond to something instantly. Okay? Like sometimes, like we could use an application like an AI application like ChatGPT and ask it to draw from all the information out there and process process that information, and give me 3 choices. We could do that with an application like ChatGPT, let's say. But there's other programming in our computer that just responds instantly. We can program a computer to respond instantly to something that comes up. Sometimes we get warnings on our computer when something happens and boom, it comes up. Sometimes on our iPhone, there'll be a trigger from like a weather warning or something like that. Oh, look out, there's a storm on the way. And it doesn't receive that. Like if we have our iPhone programmed to respond to a weather warning, it doesn't then go to ChatGPT, interface with that and say, do you think that this is a valid alarm based on all that you know? No, it just immediately responds. It says warning. You understand? So the manas is like that. When we see something, the manas has a programmed response, an instant, impulsive response. And that response is as simple as this. Either I like it or I don't like it. Either I'm attracted by it or I'm repulsed by it, right? That's it, right? Now we can analyze this. It's very fascinating. Yes?
Is there also a neutral response? Like you're not phased by it?
I've heard the yogis say that there's actually nothing entirely neutral. It may be just a little bit on one side of the fence or practically neutral, but the yogis say either it's on one side or the other. But certain ones are extreme. I hate that, or I love that. I really need that. I don't want that at all, But it can be more or less neutral. Yes?
The impulsive response will be same for all the individuals, can be different?
No.
It will be so different.
Yeah, we have very different.
So the underground thing, which is causing that impulsive response, there should be something like different in all, because otherwise it should be same if it's like at a level of...
So yes, so again, just like a computer, they may be programmed differently. I gave an example in the last class, I'll bring it up again. Let's say I had a computer here, just like we have here, and let's say I connected a camera to it, which is just like the eyes, and I connected a set of speakers to it, which is just like the voice. And let's say I also made some recordings, and I installed those recordings, files of those recordings into the computer. One of the recordings says, I like red. And another recording, it was a human voice saying, I don't like blue. Okay, so those files are sitting on mine. Now I could program that computer so that when I flash a red light in front of the camera, that there's an instant impulsive response. The computer doesn't even need to process any more information or draw from any more memory. It's going to instantly respond saying, I like red. You understand? And I could also program that when I flash a blue light in front of the camera, it impulsively, instantly, spontaneously responds by saying, I don't like blue. Okay? But we could also program it the other way to say, I don't like red, I do like blue. And this is why sometimes within the world of yoga teachings, we'll hear statements like, there is no good or bad. Have you heard statements like that before? The concepts of good and bad are unreal or they are illusory, right? It's not, sometimes they're even talking about on an ethical platform, but let's say this isn't necessarily even addressing like there's no ethical good or bad. But what it's saying is that our mind is programmed to instantaneously respond to sensory data as either good or bad. I like it or I don't like it. This will make, another way to think about it, and a really revealing way to think about it, is that our mind is programmed to say, this will make me happy, and this won't make me happy. And the yogis are saying there's no truth to that, right? There's no truth to that. Take fashion, for instance, right? One year, let's say the year is 1971, right? So everybody's wearing these jeans that like they blow out at the bottom like these super wide bell-bottom pants, right? And people, information is coming through the eyes and the ears, right? Through advertising, through seeing other people. Oh, there's the rock star wearing them. Oh, there's the movie star wearing them. Oh, that must be the thing to wear. They look great in that. I would look great in that. I need some of those pants. And so then we purchase the pants and we put the pants on and we feel good, right? But then like you just wait another year or 2 or 3 down the line. It's like, we need these tight fitting pants, we need these ones that like, that's come in, right? Like they're so tight, it's like crazy. You should go out and try to find a normal pair of pants and it's like they're all tight, because everybody's mind has become convinced that that's the attractive type of pants now. That's what makes you look good. That's what makes you feel good wearing them. And like poor parents are like, like, I need new pants. I just bought you the pair just last summer. We got you these pants. No, I don't want to wear those pants anymore. Because now the impulsive part of their mind has been reprogrammed through experience so that the mind instantly responds, I don't like that. I don't like that. Right? I don't like that. Generally, the male body is accompanied by male mental programming in response to a female form. Right? This female form is attractive. And if you can access it, if you can touch it, you'll feel good. You'll feel happy. You'll be excited. It'll be dynamic. It'll be wonderful. It's what you're looking for. And other forms, it won't be attracted to, right? Sometimes they say, like in the past, if we look at the art from the past, heavier women were seen as more attractive. And then we go through these different, the mind gets programmed in different ways to think this will make me happy. The yogis are saying there's no good or bad, right? It's just the programming in our mind. We could have programmed the computer to say, I like red, I don't like blue. Or we could have programmed to say, I don't like red and I do like blue. It's just a question of how you program the thing. It's not that red is intrinsically good and blue is intrinsically bad. And so in the same way, it's not that a particular sensory experience, the taste of chocolate, is not good or bad. It's just that we become programmed. Certain people in certain parts of the world think this chocolate is like the bitter chocolate. And certain people like the milk chocolate, the sweet chocolate. I was once giving a similar talk in Colombia, South America. And I said, there are some parts of the world where people eat insects, right? And they said, yeah, here. I was like, okay, well, there you go. They said there people like eat fried, like crickets and things like this, right? And there are other parts of the world where that's considered absolutely repulsive, disgusting. You can't pay me to eat that, right? Other people will pay to eat it, right? So why is that? Is that they have different taste buds that are different chemicals on their tongue? It's just because their mind has been programmed through their experience, right, to respond in a particular way. So that, a child in Colombia may have had their loving mother come forward with some of this and say, here, try some. This is good. Then you watched your mother eat it and you see her smile. That's just programming going right into the memory bank, right? Venezuela? In some parts they do, yeah. And then in another part of the world, like if a bug landed on your plate while you're eating, your mother says, oh, we need to throw this entire thing out. It's like completely been contaminated now, right? So that information gets programmed into the computer, right? And so now we have an instantaneous, someone walks into a store in Colombia, sees a bag of fried crickets, and there's an instantaneous response, oh, that's good. Oh, that would make me happy right now, right? And another person says, oh my God, how can they eat that stuff? I'm forgive me if I'm going to ruin anyone's culinary experiences right now. I grew up in an Italian-American family. And that meant Fridays was like seafood, right? Usually pasta combined with seafood. And there was one dish called shrimp scampi. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but basically shrimp sauteed in like butter and basil and oregano, Italian spices, olive oil. Now say I invited you to my home for dinner and you accepted the invitation, the doorbell rang and I welcomed you in. I said, oh, have a seat, I'm almost done cooking, and you go, oh, it smells lovely in here, and you're smelling this basil and oregano and olive oil, and you're just like, I can't wait. And then you're sitting at the table, and I come out and I open up, and what you see in there is not shrimp skin, but you're seeing cockroaches in there, right? You might be like, oh my, why did you do that? Why did you invite me over? But think about it. Is the shrimp very different than the cockroach? Right? It's got the same kind of hard, crusty outside, soft, white inside. It's got the same kind of googly eyes and little antenna moving around. It's essentially the same creature, but one's of the land and one's of the water. But people are commonly like, oh, that's a delicacy. This is great. What a gourmet meal I'm being served. And the other one, which is essentially the exact same thing, you're thinking, that is the most repulsive thing I've ever seen. I can't believe you'd do that to me, right? It doesn't make sense rationally, but it's the way that our minds have been programmed. Yes?
Swamiji, if we call hope you don't mind if we call the impulsive mind
Yeah.
as a reflexly acting superficial mind,
Yes.
which causes immediate action or thoughts. Is it fine?
That's fine. We can say impulsive, we can say reflective in that sense, like reflexive. Reflexive. Yes.
And causing like immediate action, like if someone just hits me and I just cause this is, or thought also, like immediate thought also, like you said about like and dislike.
Yes, there'll be an immediate response like that.
In the form of action or thought.
One or the other. I'm definitely in thought and possibly in action.
But it is a superficial part of mind.
It's superficial in the sense, yes, superficial. Superficial means surface. Yeah. So in that sense, it's superficial. That's a good word to use. Now, there's another part of the mind called the buddhi, which is the intellect, which is not superficial. It's reflective. Yeah, it's a deeper level of thought. It involves accessing more information, processing that information. It involves judgment and discernment and so on. Reasoning, right? There's no reasoning in the manas, in the impulsive mind. It's an instant response. And so this is really important that the yogis are saying this, and this gets back to what we're talking about when we're talking about freedom. The yogis are saying that our minds have been programmed through our experience in life, and we're following that program. In other words, we've been convinced that this will make me happy and this won't. I need some more money. I need an attractive partner. I need a better apartment. I need a better job. And when I get these things in place, these external things in place, I'm going to feel happiness. The mind is telling us these things. It's been programmed to respond to these things. It's also been programmed to respond, I don't want that. That's uncomfortable. That's unpleasant. That's unattractive. These things will bring unhappiness into my life. I need to avoid them. The yogis are saying good and bad on that level don't really exist. It's just the question of it's been programmed as good. It's been programmed as bad. But the fact that from the moment that we wake up in the morning until the moment that we lie down to go to sleep at night, we follow that programming as if it were true, as if it were real, as if it were meaningful, as if it were not superficial, but as if it were deeply meaningful, is the proof that we are trapped, that we are not free. Does it make sense? And this is why I say red pill, blue pill right now, everybody. Because if that's true, then that means we need to make a decision. Do I want to just accept the illusion and live forever as a slave to my own mind, like in the Matrix? Or do I want to fight for my freedom? And the way that we fight for freedom is through yoga, right? You can become free of your mind's programming. And when you get there, it's blissful. It's really nice. In the Matrix, it's like when you get there, it's just like horrible. It's like, like you're just fighting all these, but no, it'll be good when you get there. That's the promise. That it'll be, and those that have experienced it are saying, and as you're stepping towards it, you're feeling it more and more too. Make sense? Yes. So this is the thing about, these are the two things, that's one thing I wanted everyone to understand about the impulsive mind, is that it's programmed to give an impulsive response that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with truth. It's just programming. Okay. The other thing that we need to understand about the impulsive mind is that it's the decider. It's the application through which we make our decisions. Does that make sense? In other words, if according to how that's programmed determines how we make our decisions. Sometimes, like in cartoons, there's like this dramatic, it uses this kind of dramatic construct of like there's an angel sitting on one shoulder and like there's a devil sitting on the other shoulder. And we have to decide, and they're both speaking to us like that. Sometimes life is a battle between the programming and the manas, which is telling us do this, and then the intellect, which is the reasoning aspect of our mind, that's saying there are problems with that decision. That's not necessarily a good decision. Let me use an example. How many of you generally wake up to an alarm clock in the morning? Okay, so quite a few people. And the moment that the alarm goes off, in that exact moment, how does the manas respond? How does the impulsive part of the mind respond? Does it respond by saying, I love that sound. This is the best part of the day right here. So pleasant. If only the whole day could just be this moment right now. Most of us, there's an instant, spontaneous response that says, I don't like this. This is uncomfortable. This is unwelcome, right? And we think, I just want to hit the snooze, hit the snooze function or whatever they call it, and sleep more, lie here more. This bed is comfortable. This bed is soft. This bed is warm. All these things are good. These bring you happiness. It'll bring you unhappiness to leave this space right now. Be uncomfortable, cold. But then the buddhi, and tomorrow, because we're running out of time, tomorrow we'll get more into the ego and the intellect, but then the intellect is going to say, no, it's time to get up. This is important. There are pros and cons to this decision, and you're only considering one side of this. You need to consider the other side. And then the manas say, no, there's more time. We've got more time. And then the intellect say, no, time is running out. And the impulsive mind say, no, it's good here, it's good here. And then finally what happens is that the reasoning, the intellect, that function, that application in the mind will overpower the manas, the impulsive mind. Because it'll come through with information that it's two applications interfacing, you understand? Two applications, just like on a computer, one, our map application may interface with our calendar application or something like that, or the weather app may interface with another, with our map app and say, oh, you could go here, but it's going to take longer because the weather's like this. There's a snowstorm or something like that. So our two apps are interfacing with one another, and one of them is going to have to win. And so usually what happens is the application of the intellect says, because the manas, the impulsive mind, is only concerned about pleasure and comfort and avoiding pain and discomfort. It's just going to choose based on that. It needs to be convinced that it's going to be more uncomfortable by not getting up. And so what the intellect says is, the pain that you will suffer from getting up is much less than the pain of losing your job. And so you need to get up. And then it says, you're right. And then it gets up like that. You understand? So these are the battles that are going on in our minds all the time and the different functions. But let me end here today in saying that this function, this application of the mind called the buddhi or the intellect, for the yogi, this is super important. That intellect needs to be well informed with good knowledge, sharpened through practice, so that the intellect becomes the most influential app of these three, and that it be informed in a healthy way, and then it can reprogram the manas so that it responds to healthy stuff favorably. I like to wake up early in the morning. I like to eat healthy food. I like to, and so on, so that the mind becomes the friend, leading us on a healthy path rather than on a destructive path. I'm out of time, so it's been a joy spending this time with all of you. We're back here every day at 9 a.m. except on Mondays for the next 25 days or something like that. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you tomorrow. Hari Om Tat Sat.